I was about half term pregnant when I followed my first sleep expert on Instagram. I had no plan for my labor, I didn't have a single newborn essential item, but I already had a very detailed plan about how I was going to approach my baby's sleep training. But then the baby was born, and I got a very harsh reality check. So let me tell you which sleep training advice I ended up not following and why it was the best decision in my life. So first of all, what is sleep training about? Sleep training is about teaching your baby to fall asleep on their own without your help, which I think is a crazy idea by itself, because being able to fall asleep is not a skill that needs to be taught. So basically, what it really is about teaching your baby to go back to sleep when they wake up in between their sleep cycles, which are around 45 minutes, without your help. But when babies wake up between their sleep cycles and start crying, usually, most often, it's not because they don't know how to go back to sleep on their own. When they do wake up, they do it in order to check that they are safe, that their mom is still there, and that they have not been left alone to die from hunger and cold. They just need our reassurance that they are safe and sleep is a safe environment. I'm essentially against sleep training, but I wasn't always like that. When I got pregnant, I actually had a very elaborate idea about how perfect and how controlled my baby's sleep habits are gonna be. I had this illusion that if I do a sequence of actions, I will be able to create a predictable sleep schedule for my baby, and I will be able to rely on my baby falling asleep whenever I wanted to fall asleep. And that is a beautiful illusion, but it's just an illusion because that's just not how babies work. It's not how nature meant it to be. So when my baby arrived, I was trying to follow the sleep training advice to my best abilities, and I was so stressed. I was constantly worrying that my baby is getting overtired and it's not following the age-appropriate wake windows, and that I am neglecting its brain development by failing to put my baby to sleep when it's supposed to be asleep. And I was sleep deprived myself. I wasn't in a happy place. I remember how I would regularly take a break to just lie down on the floor and cry because of how helpless and overwhelmed I felt about my baby's sleep. And then I found a different kind of sleep expert on Instagram, and thank God, because she saved my life and sanity. I will link her profile in the description so you can check it out as well for yourself. She just gave me a whole new perspective, which has brought so much peace and relaxation in my life. Let me break down the common sleep training advice and why and how it did or did not work for me. Because not all of it is bad. Some of it is actually quite valid. Let us start with the eat, play, sleep cycle. I was so determined to follow the eat, play, sleep cycle, and I have no idea why. I really don't get it why modern society tries to make mothers' lives harder when it's already so difficult to be a mom by not allowing them to nurse babies to sleep. Nursing to sleep is being demonized and is seen as a bad habit, when in fact what I believe is the best tool nature gave us and my number one solution to bringing baby to sleep. If I can, I will always nurse my baby to sleep, because that is the absolute easiest way to bring my baby to sleep. Ever since I gave up on trying to use an alternative soothing method like rocking, singing, petting, back rubs, and whatever, because those didn't work. Well, yeah, they worked, but they took like 30, 40, 60 minutes of my time, and by the time I was so filled with rage over my helplessness and failure as a mother, because that is how you feel when you have to spend an hour trying to put your baby to sleep. You feel like a failure. You feel like you can't do the most basic task that is required from you as a parent. That is not good for your mental health, not at all. And once I let go of that idea and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'll nurse my baby to sleep. Oh my gosh, the life has become so much better, so much easier. I don't know why I haven't started doing it sooner. Up until now, I'm still nursing my baby to sleep whenever I can, and that is just such a peaceful experience because I can listen to an audiobook. I do my routine and then I start nursing and I say goodnight and I start listening to my audiobook, and I just wait for the baby to peacefully nurse and to fall asleep while I enjoy some mental relaxation by listening to an audiobook or to a podcast or to music, whatever. Like, you can even meditate. So if you were feeling bad about nursing your baby to sleep, here's my blessing for you. Please nurse your baby to sleep and be happy. And that is followed by put your baby to bed, drowsy but awake. This is my favorite one. Probably cost me the most amount of nerves. I don't know how do people manage to do that. I'm not even talking about the cry it out method that I just think is just cruel to both the baby and the mother. But even with like soft sleep training methods, when you put your baby to bed drowsy but awake, I tried that. It took me a lot of patience to try to even look forward to my baby wanting to fall asleep like that. Most of the times he would just start crying right away. Like every time I tried to put my baby into his crib drowsy, he looked at me like I was insane. Like, what the hell, mom? Like, what are you doing? And I think that is totally normal because babies, what they need on biological level, they need to hear, smell, feel, and taste their mom. They need the closeness of their mom's body to fall asleep. How many of us adults sleep alone in their bed? I sleep very badly when my husband isn't in bed. I want my protector to be next to me. And the tiny little helpless babies, they rely on their protector, on their caretaker to be there when they fall asleep. So that's why I only ever put my baby to crib when he's fully asleep. And that works like a charm. The next piece of advice of sleep trainers is to stick to your routines, even if it's difficult at first. I have mixed feelings about this advice because on one hand, I agree that babies need structure in their day. On the other hand, I think that sticking to your routine when it's hard for the mom is extremely difficult for the mental health. And it's very exhausting and it can lead to depression. I would actually argue that moms should thrive to stick to their routines, but they should feel much more relaxed if they can't follow the routine. It's especially important for different life situations where you just can't put your baby to sleep the way you usually do it at the time you usually do it. And that has been a very big source of stress for me. I was so religious about my sleep time routine for the baby. I was convinced that if the baby isn't in bed by 7 p.m., the world was just gonna explode. And then we went on vacation. And we wanted to go out and eat in a restaurant, and there was absolutely no way for us to go out and eat without taking the baby with us. So the baby couldn't make it to bed at 7 p.m. I was so terrified about it, but well, guess what? The baby did just fine. He fell asleep in a baby carrier and then he woke up and was like, oh, it's 8 p.m. I'm in a restaurant. Cool. What have you got? And then we came back home at 9 and the baby was like, yeah, okay, fine. I'm tired now. Can I continue sleeping? Yeah, thank you very much. Nothing bad happened. We didn't put the baby to bed following our bed night routine at 7 p.m. and the world didn't explode. And it was beautiful. That is just so important for mothers not to stress out about sticking strictly to your schedule because life happens and you can't predict every single day. You have to be prepared to be much more flexible. Let's talk about wake windows. Wake windows are great. This is probably the most sane part of sleep training because what is definitely true is that bringing to bed an overtired baby is ridiculously difficult. So it's quite important to know the age-appropriate wake windows for your baby and try to stick to them. However, all of the wake windows that you can find online are just guidelines. You have to be able to identify your baby's unique wake window. Don't stress out if your baby's wake windows do not correspond to what internet suggests it should be. This was the biggest trap I fell into because my son's wake windows did not fit into the recommended wake windows. His wake windows were longer than all of the recommended wake windows I could find online, and that was stressing me out tremendously. I was convinced that I am doing something wrong, and I was paying too much attention to tracking his sleep instead of paying enough attention to actually observing him and learning his tiredness cues. So from the day he was born, I was tracking his sleep religiously. If you are like me and you are also religiously tracking your baby's sleep, I dare you to stop tracking for at least 3 days. Try to just focus on your baby's tiredness cues. I'm gonna list them on the screen so you can pause and screenshot. You definitely have to know your baby's tiredness cues and their individual wake window. And then you should try to bring them to bed as they start getting tired and avoid them getting overtired. But with that said, even if your baby becomes overtired, you still shouldn't stress out and think that you're a bad mom because you didn't manage to bring your baby to sleep in time. The next sleep training advice is to stick to a consistent bedtime routine. And I actually agree with this one. This is a great way. As I already mentioned, I think that structure in baby's day and life is very beneficial to them. Bedtime routines are great. I just have one comment on it. It should be as simple as possible so that you can sustain it. I also want to add that you should try to make the baby's sleep environment appropriate for sleep, so it should be cold and dark. Darkness is really non-negotiable for me. I think that it's very important to have either blinds or blackout curtains, or maybe even both ideally. I try to keep our bedroom as dark as possible. That also includes any light produced by any electronic devices like clocks, phone chargers, any light switches, etc. And now I've come to the most controversial topic. The baby should sleep in its own crib. I feel like from this moment we're gonna have either a love or hate relationship. But it's okay, I can't please everyone, so here it goes. I think that parents should co-sleep. I didn't used to think so, primarily because I didn't know I could think so. Everything I knew about baby sleep was always around the baby's sleep independence and the baby sleeping in the crib and ideally in their own room. I was genuinely convinced that that was the only possible way to do it. We even had the crib standing in the nursery, and then I started reading a little bit more about it. At some point I stumbled upon the information that at least for the first half a year it is recommended that the baby sleeps in the same room with its parents because it helps to significantly reduce the risk of sudden death. So we moved the crib to our bedroom, and the plan was that the baby would sleep in its crib next to my bed, and I would just get up and nurse the baby during the night whenever it needs to be nursed. And I did. The first couple of weeks I was getting up whenever the baby would wake up and start crying to call for me. I would get up, extremely drowsy, lift up the baby, sit down in my bed, hold the baby, and nurse. Obviously, I also read that falling asleep with your baby while you're sitting in any position is also not safe for sleep, so I would be very obsessed about staying awake, not allowing myself to fall asleep until the baby finishes nursing, and then the baby finishes nursing, put the baby back to bed, and then I would go back to sleep. That's how I lost anywhere from 1 to 3 hours of my sleep during the night. Every morning I was so freaking exhausted. And then at some point I was complaining to my doula how exhausted I feel, how difficult it is for me to nurse during the night. She was like, well, why don't you nurse him sideways and then just fall asleep together with the baby? I was like, I can do that? I can nurse my baby without getting up? I don't have to hold my baby? I can just let him lie there next to me and nurse him? And I can even fall asleep as I am nursing? I don't have to wait for it to end? She's like, no. Make your bed safe. And there are like 7 rules for safe co-sleeping. The mother has to be non-smoker. The mother has to be sober. The baby has to be healthy and full term. There should be no heavy blankets. There should be fitted sheet on the bed so that the baby doesn't suffocate. The mattress has to be hard. The baby shouldn't be swaddled. The baby should lie on their back. If you are exclusively breastfeeding during the day and night, I was like, okay, I can co-sleep with my baby. And I tried it. And it was absolutely the best parenting decision I've made. I definitely think that if possible, if you can tick all of those check boxes of safe co-sleeping, you really should give it a try. It just makes it so much easier. I barely wake up. I open my eyes, I give the boop, I close my eyes. Takes me less than a minute. Done. I'm asleep. In the morning, I barely even remember it happened. I actually found a very good podcast with a lactation expert who explains the benefits of co-sleeping extremely well. She explains how it positively affects mom's milk supply. I highly recommend you to watch it. It may give you a lot of peace of mind if you've never considered co-sleeping. I really think it's a shame how little society talks about co-sleeping. Mothers are ashamed to admit that they co-sleep with their babies. They are ashamed to admit that their baby can't sleep on their own in their crib. And I just think it's wrong. It shouldn't be shameful to want to sleep with your baby. I mean, it's such a beautiful experience because babies are such great cuddlers. It only lasts for like 2, maximum 3 years, and then they're gonna want to sleep in their own bed. Why not enjoy them while you can? Why not enjoy cuddling with your baby? Co-sleeping with my child and learning how to let go of strict schedules and how to not stress about not following the wake windows perfectly was such a transformational experience for me. It brought back proper full night's sleep into my life. It helped me to become much more sane and relaxed and more emotionally stable as a mother. I just wish that somebody told me sooner that it's perfectly fine to sleep with my baby. I would like to pay respect to Ukrainian mothers who have to put their babies to sleep during all of those air raid alarms. I'm not even talking about moms who have lost their husband, pregnant women who have to give birth in the craziest conditions. You are heroes, and I really hope that your bravery is gonna be rewarded and you're gonna be able to enjoy peaceful life again as soon as possible. I wish everyone a great day, a safe sky above your head, and I'll see you next time. Bye!